For centuries, the story of early humans was told in neat, linear fashion, as if our ancestors moved step by step from primitive to advanced, from ape-like creatures stumbling through the savannah to upright beings who eventually discovered tools, fire, and civilization. Scientists built charts, timelines, and family trees to illustrate this seemingly inevitable march of progress. Yet over time, discoveries began piling up that didn't fit the model. Fossils appeared in the wrong places, artifacts turned up in the wrong layers, and genetic evidence revealed connections no one had predicted. What we thought we knew about early humans began to unravel, showing us not a straight line of evolution but a tangled, branching, messy web that challenges everything we once believed. The story begins with 19th-century scientists who tried to interpret fossil bones in light of Charles Darwin's new theory of evolution. At first, they believed in a simple narrative: apes evolved into primitive humans, who then slowly advanced into modern Homo sapiens. Fossils like Neanderthals were seen as brutish, less intelligent cousins, an evolutionary stepping stone we had surpassed. But this interpretation was shaped as much by cultural bias as by evidence. Victorians wanted to see themselves as the pinnacle of evolution, and so they imagined earlier humans as crude, savage, and barely capable of thought. For decades, this narrative persisted in museums and textbooks, shaping public understanding. Then came discoveries that forced scientists to rethink. The unearthing of Homo erectus fossils in Asia showed that humans had left Africa far earlier than believed. The realization that Neanderthals buried their dead and may have used symbolic objects suggested a complexity that clashed with the old stereotype of brutishness. In the 20th century, stone tools were found in unexpected places, sometimes associated with species thought too primitive to make them. These finds hinted at a more diverse and capable range of human ancestors than scientists had acknowledged. The revolution truly began with genetics. In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, researchers began extracting DNA from fossilized bones. To their shock, they discovered that modern humans outside Africa carried traces of Neanderthal DNA. This meant our ancestors had not simply replaced Neanderthals, but interbred with them. Further discoveries revealed that humans in Oceania and parts of Asia carried DNA from another mysterious species, the Denisovans, identified from only a few fragments of bone and teeth. Suddenly, it became clear that our evolutionary story was not one of clean succession but of overlapping species, contact, and genetic exchange. We were not alone in the past, we lived among multiple kinds of humans, sometimes competing, sometimes cooperating, sometimes mating. These revelations demolished the old ladder-like view of human evolution. Instead, it became more like a braided river, with streams that split, joined, and disappeared. Species we once thought of as failed experiments in evolution turned out to be part of our own heritage, living alongside us and leaving their genetic imprint. The very definition of what it means to be human grew fuzzy. Were Neanderthals human? They painted caves, shaped tools, and cared for their sick. Were Denisovans human? They left behind no art we know of, but their DNA helped modern Tibetans adapt to high altitudes. Even Homo floresiensis, the so-called hobbits, discovered in Indonesia, complicate the picture. Small-bodied and with tiny brains, they nevertheless made tools and survived until as recently as 50,000 years ago, overlapping with Homo sapiens. The idea of a lone march toward progress vanished. Instead, we see a crowded world full of different human kinds, each with their own survival strategies. What makes this story even more surprising is how wrong earlier scientists were about human intelligence and capability. For much of the 20th century, researchers assumed that brain size was the key to advancement. Larger brains meant smarter humans, they thought, which explained why modern Homo sapiens succeeded while others failed. But findings contradicted this. Neanderthals actually had brains as large as, or larger than, ours. Homo floresiensis had small brains but managed to make stone tools and perhaps even seafaring journeys. Intelligence, it turns out, is not simply about brain volume but about how brains are wired, how societies are organized, and how knowledge is transmitted across generations. The arrogance of assuming a straight correlation between brain size and progress blinded us for decades. Another misconception was the assumption of cultural superiority. Early scientists thought only Homo sapiens engaged in symbolic thought, language, and art. Yet evidence has repeatedly contradicted this. Neanderthals used pigments, possibly for body decoration or cave painting. They wore ornaments made of shells and animal teeth. They built structures deep inside caves where light barely reached, suggesting ritual or symbolic behavior. Far from being simple-minded brutes, they shared many cognitive abilities with us. When scientists dismissed these possibilities in the past, it revealed more about their own biases than about the reality of early humans. They wanted Homo sapiens to be unique and special, but nature tells a more complex story. Even the timeline of human emergence has shifted. For years, the consensus was that modern humans arose in Africa about 200,000 years ago, then spread outward in a single wave around 60,000 years ago. But new fossil evidence suggests modern humans may be older than that. Fossils from Morocco dated to around 300,000 years ago bear many features of Homo sapiens. Other evidence shows multiple dispersals out of Africa, some of which may not have survived, while others contributed genes to later populations. The neat picture of one migration giving rise to all non-African humans has been replaced by a patchwork of movements, contacts, and survival challenges. The unpredictability of discovery has also shown how fragile our knowledge is. The Denisovans, for example, were unknown until 2010, when DNA from a finger bone in a Siberian cave revealed an entirely new branch of humanity. Who knows how many other human relatives once walked the earth, leaving behind few traces. Caves, deserts, and jungles may still hide fossils that could rewrite the story again. Scientists were wrong not only about specific details but about the very nature of human prehistory. It is not a settled story but an evolving mystery. This shift has profound implications for how we see ourselves today. If modern humans interbred with Neanderthals and Denisovans, then we are not a pure, separate species but a mosaic of ancient lineages. Our genes carry memories of encounters tens of thousands of years old, shaping our health, adaptations, and even vulnerabilities. Some Neanderthal genes influence immunity, skin color, and susceptibility to disease. Denisovan genes helped certain populations survive in high mountains. We are literally built from the pieces of other humans once dismissed as extinct failures. This challenges the idea of human exceptionalism and forces us to recognize that our success was not inevitable but the result of complex interactions with others. It also changes how we think about extinction. Neanderthals and Denisovans are gone, but they live on in us. Did Homo sapiens cause their disappearance through competition, or did climate and environmental changes play the main role? The answers remain debated, but what is clear is that survival was not guaranteed. Our species came close to extinction at various points, and if conditions had been different, perhaps another branch of humanity might have prevailed. The arrogance of assuming inevitability has been replaced by the humility of recognizing chance and contingency. Archaeology continues to provide surprises. Discoveries of tools older than expected show that even species before Homo sapiens had technological skills once denied to them. Evidence of early seafaring in places like Indonesia suggests planning and cooperation far earlier than imagined. Fire use, long thought to be the hallmark of modern humans, may have been mastered by multiple species independently. Step by step, the line separating us from them fades, replaced by a continuum of overlapping capabilities. In light of these findings, many scientists now acknowledge that earlier interpretations were distorted by cultural assumptions. The old view of linear progress reflected Victorian ideas of hierarchy, race, and superiority. It is no coincidence that the same era saw justifications for colonialism and the belief in civilized versus primitive peoples. Science mirrored society's prejudices. By contrast, the modern picture of human evolution is more egalitarian and pluralistic. It acknowledges diversity, complexity, and the contributions of multiple human kinds. Far from being mistakes on the way to us, these other humans were successful in their own right, surviving for hundreds of thousands of years in harsh environments. The irony is that in correcting these misconceptions, we also learn more about ourselves. We are not the pinnacle of evolution but part of a branching, experimental process. We share kinship with beings once dismissed as inferior. We carry their genes, inherit their innovations, and perhaps even continue some of their traditions unconsciously. The very act of storytelling about human origins reflects our drive to make sense of who we are, but the story keeps changing with every new fossil, every new genome, every new site uncovered. Looking ahead, the story will likely grow even stranger. Advances in ancient DNA may reveal more hidden relatives. Excavations in Africa and Asia may uncover fossils of unknown species. Perhaps we will find evidence of human groups surviving far longer than we thought, or technologies that push back the timeline of innovation. Each discovery will remind us of how wrong we once were, and how provisional our knowledge still is. What remains constant is the need for humility. Scientists were completely wrong about early humans not because they lacked intelligence, but because they assumed too much certainty. They tried to fit evidence into neat narratives instead of allowing for complexity. Today, the best scientists embrace uncertainty, acknowledging that the story is unfinished and may never be entirely complete. The lesson is not only about prehistory but about how science itself evolves. It is a process of questioning, revising, and accepting that certainty is rare. In the end, the true story of early humans is richer, messier, and more fascinating than the one we were once told. Instead of a lonely march from ape to man, it is a crowded stage full of diverse actors, some still mysterious, all contributing to the drama of survival. Instead of a tale of inevitable progress, it is a story of chance, adaptation, and resilience. And instead of separating us from our ancestors, the new discoveries bring us closer to them, showing that we are not so different after all. We are, quite literally, a product of their lives, their struggles, and their genes. The mistakes of earlier science remind us of the dangers of arrogance, but the corrections remind us of the power of discovery. In the tangled web of human origins, the truth is not that we stand apart from other humans, but that we stand with them, sharing a history far more interconnected than we ever imagined. 1. The old linear evolution myth. For much of the 19th and 20th centuries, scientists depicted human evolution as a straight line. Textbooks and museum displays showed apes slowly transforming into modern man in a predictable sequence: ape-like ancestor right-pointing arrow, primitive hominid right-pointing arrow, Neanderthal right-pointing arrow, Homo sapiens. This narrative suggested progress was inevitable and that evolution always marched toward perfection, with us as the final result. But fossils and genetic discoveries now prove this was a massive oversimplification. Evolution is not a ladder but a tangled tree with many branches, some of which survived while others went extinct. Multiple human species existed at the same time, interacting in ways that don't fit a neat progression. The old model was comforting because it put modern humans at the top, but reality is far messier. The more evidence we uncover, the clearer it becomes that our history is one of complexity, overlap, and surprising twists, not inevitability. 2. Victorian bias in science. When fossils of early humans were first discovered, 19th-century scientists interpreted them through the lens of their culture. Victorian society believed strongly in hierarchy and progress, so researchers assumed earlier humans were crude, savage, and inferior. Neanderthals were dismissed as stupid cavemen, even though their remains suggested otherwise. This was not just about science but about ideology. Victorians saw themselves as the pinnacle of civilization and wanted to view human evolution as proof of superiority. These assumptions led to errors in interpretation, with genuine evidence of intelligence ignored or explained away. For example, tools and symbolic objects associated with Neanderthals were once attributed to Homo sapiens, because scientists couldn't imagine inferior humans making them. Today, we know these biases distorted the truth. Science should be objective, but the story of early humans reveals how cultural prejudice can shape conclusions. Correcting those mistakes has been essential in rewriting prehistory accurately. 3. Neanderthal misconceptions. For decades, Neanderthals were portrayed as hunched, brutish, slow-witted creatures doomed to extinction once modern humans appeared. They were considered evolutionary dead ends, too primitive to compete. This image was fueled by early misinterpretations of their fossils, including one skeleton with arthritis that made the individual appear stooped. In reality, Neanderthals were far more advanced. They made sophisticated tools, hunted in groups, used fire, and built shelters. Evidence suggests they cared for their sick and elderly, showing compassion and social organization. They even created art, ornaments, and perhaps music, proving symbolic thought. Genetic studies reveal that Neanderthals interbred with our ancestors, leaving DNA in modern populations. Instead of being failures, they were successful humans who thrived for hundreds of thousands of years. Their extinction was not about inferiority but about changing climates, limited numbers, and competition. The Neanderthal story demonstrates how deeply wrong scientists were about early humans. The discovery of Homo erectus fossils in Asia upended earlier ideas about human migration. Before these finds, scientists believed early humans evolved in Africa and stayed there until modern Homo sapiens spread out. But Homo erectus lived in Asia more than 1 million years ago, showing that humans left Africa far earlier than thought. They were highly adaptable, using fire, making tools, and possibly even building rafts to cross water. Homo erectus survived for nearly 2 million years, making them one of the most successful human species in history. Their endurance challenges the old belief that only Homo sapiens were truly capable of mastering environments worldwide. Fossils in Indonesia and China demonstrate that our family trees spread across continents much earlier and more widely. Homo erectus was not a primitive failure but a thriving species whose legacy shaped our evolutionary journey and proved scientists' earlier models were far too narrow. 5. Stone tools in unexpected places. One of the biggest surprises in archaeology has been the discovery of stone tools linked to species once thought incapable of making them. For example, tools associated with Homo habilis or even earlier hominins challenge the assumption that complex tool-making began only with Homo sapiens. In some cases, tools are found in regions where modern humans had not yet arrived, proving that other human species developed these technologies independently. The sophistication of certain stone blades, scrapers, and spears suggests planning, skill, and cultural transmission, traits once reserved exclusively for our species. These discoveries force scientists to accept that intelligence and innovation were not unique to Homo sapiens. The old image of early humans as passive, slow learners is completely wrong. Instead, the archaeological record shows that creativity and problem-solving were common across multiple branches of the human family, undermining the notion of Homo sapiens as the sole innovators. 6. The DNA revolution. The most dramatic shift in understanding human origins came with the ability to extract and sequence ancient DNA. Beginning in the late 20th century, geneticists took samples from Neanderthal bones and compared them to modern human DNA. To their shock, they discovered that non-African humans share 1–4% of their genes with Neanderthals, proving interbreeding occurred. This discovery shattered the long-standing belief that Homo sapiens replaced other human species without mixing. Later, DNA from a finger bone in Siberia revealed a completely new species, the Denisovans, proving the fossil record was incomplete. Genetic research continues to uncover surprising connections, showing that our evolutionary history is not just about fossils but about genetic legacies hidden in our own bodies. This revolution has redefined human prehistory, showing that we are hybrids with DNA from multiple human relatives. Scientists once dismissed the possibility of interbreeding, but genetics proved them completely wrong. 7. Neanderthal legacy in modern humans. The presence of Neanderthal DNA in modern humans is more than a curiosity, it has real biological effects today. Some Neanderthal genes influence skin color, hair type, and immune system responses. Certain traits, such as the ability to better resist specific pathogens, came from our Neanderthal ancestors. But not all legacies are positive. Some genes are linked to autoimmune diseases, depression, or nicotine addiction. This complex inheritance shows that interbreeding was not just occasional but significant enough to leave lasting marks. It also challenges the old idea that Homo sapiens were genetically isolated. Instead, modern humanity is a mosaic of ancient lineages. The Neanderthal contribution is a reminder that they were not outsiders but part of our extended family, shaping who we are today. Far from being evolutionary failures, Neanderthals continue to live within us, influencing our biology and reminding us that scientists were wrong to dismiss them. 8. The mystery of the Denisovans. In 2010, a tiny finger bone found in Denisova cave in Siberia. shocked the scientific world. DNA analysis revealed it belonged to a previously unknown human species, the Denisovans. Unlike Neanderthals, Denisovans left behind almost no fossils, yet their genetic signature is widespread. People in Oceania and parts of Asia carry up to 5% Denisovan DNA, showing that they once lived and interbred with Homo sapiens across large regions. Denisovan genes also contributed unique adaptations, such as the ability of Tibetans to survive at high altitudes. This discovery highlights how incomplete our fossil record is. Entire species may remain unknown until a fragment of DNA reveals their existence. Scientists once thought they had a good grasp of the human family tree, but Denisovans proved otherwise. Their mysterious presence, powerful legacy, and near-total invisibility remind us how wrong past models of human evolution were. 9. The Hobbit people, Homo floresiensis. In 2003, archaeologists discovered tiny human skeletons on the Indonesian island of Flores. Nicknamed hobbits, Homo floresiensis stood barely over 3 feet tall and had brains about 1/3 the size of modern humans. Initially, some scientists dismissed them as diseased Homo sapiens, but further study confirmed they were a distinct species. Despite their small stature and brains, they made stone tools, hunted animals, and may have used fire. Their survival until at least 50,000 years ago means they overlapped with modern humans and possibly even encountered them. This discovery overturned the assumption that small-brained humans could not be intelligent or capable of complex behavior. The hobbits prove that human evolution experimented with many forms, some very different from us. Their existence reveals how wrong scientists were to link intelligence solely with size or to assume Homo sapiens were the only humans thriving in that era. 10. Brain size does not equal intelligence. For a long time, scientists believed intelligence could be measured by brain size. Larger brains were assumed to mean greater intelligence and evolutionary success. But discoveries across human evolution have destroyed this myth. Neanderthals had brains as large as, or larger than, modern humans, yet they eventually went extinct. Homo floresiensis had tiny brains but showed surprising ingenuity in tool-making. Intelligence depends not just on brain size but on structure, organization, and cultural factors like communication and knowledge sharing. Our ancestors succeeded not simply because of brain volume but because they built networks, transmitted skills, and innovated socially as well as technologically. The outdated brain size theory reveals how wrong scientists were in their simplistic assumptions. True intelligence emerges from adaptability and cooperation, not raw brain mass. The myth of big brain superiority collapsed, replaced by a richer understanding of intelligence in many human species. 11. Symbolism beyond Homo sapiens. For years, symbolic thought, art, language, ritual was considered uniquely human. Scientists believed only Homo sapiens could think abstractly, imagine concepts, or create symbolic objects. But discoveries have shattered this idea. Neanderthals used pigments and crafted ornaments from shells and animal teeth. They carved patterns into bones and may have painted caves. In one cave in France, Neanderthals arranged stalagmites into circular structures deep underground, possibly for ritual purposes. These actions show symbolic awareness and cultural depth. The discovery that Neanderthals engaged in symbolic behavior proves they were not cognitively inferior. They shared with us the ability to imagine, to represent ideas, and to create meaning. Scientists were completely wrong to deny them this capacity. Recognizing Neanderthal symbolism also forces us to reconsider the definition of humanity itself, as creativity and abstract thought were not unique to us but part of a broader human inheritance. 12. The shifting timeline of Homo sapiens. For decades, scientists thought Homo sapiens first appeared about 200,000 years ago in Africa. But fossil finds in Morocco in 2017 pushed that date back to 300,000 years. These remains show features of modern humans alongside older traits, suggesting our evolution was gradual and complex. Other discoveries hint that Homo sapiens may have left Africa earlier than the traditionally accepted 60,000 years ago. Fossils in Israel dating to 180,000 years ago suggest earlier migrations, some of which may not have survived. This revised timeline shows our species' emergence was not a simple, sudden event but a long process with multiple populations evolving and mixing. The neat narrative of a single origin and single migration is gone. Instead, our story is far older and more intricate than once believed, proving scientists underestimated both our age and the complexity of our early history. 13. Multiple migrations from Africa. The classic model taught in schools was that Homo sapiens left Africa in one great migration about 60,000 years ago, spreading across the globe. But new evidence suggests multiple waves of migration, some as early as 120,000 years ago. Some groups may have died out, while others interbred with Neanderthals or Denisovans. DNA evidence shows traces of ancient lineages that don't match any known fossil species, suggesting ghost populations of humans who left Africa but later disappeared. This patchwork model replaces the outdated idea of a single, clean migration. Our ancestors may have moved back and forth, mixing with other humans and adapting to new environments. Scientists were wrong to think of migration as a one-time event. Instead, it was a long, dynamic process that shaped the genetic diversity of modern humans and intertwined us with other human species across continents. 14. Survival was not guaranteed. For much of history, Homo sapiens were not dominant but vulnerable. Genetic studies suggest our population dropped to dangerously low numbers at certain points, possibly fewer than 10,000 individuals worldwide. Meanwhile, other species like Neanderthals thrived in Europe for hundreds of thousands of years, and Homo erectus endured in Asia for nearly 2 million years. Our survival was far from inevitable. Climate changes, environmental challenges, and competition could easily have wiped us out. The fact that we endured is a story of adaptability, luck, and resilience, not superiority. This realization contradicts the old belief that humans were destined to conquer the planet. We were once just another species struggling for survival among many. That humility reshapes how we view our place in nature. Our existence today reflects a fragile chain of survival, not guaranteed dominance, showing how wrong earlier scientists were about inevitability. 15. Extinction or assimilation. When scientists first studied Neanderthals and other early humans, they assumed Homo sapiens caused their extinction through competition or violence. The old story was one of conquest. Modern humans outsmarted and outcompeted others. But DNA tells a different story. Neanderthals, Denisovans, and possibly other species live on in us through interbreeding. Instead of complete extinction, assimilation occurred. These humans were not entirely lost but became part of our genetic legacy. This changes the narrative from one of victory to one of blending. While some populations did vanish, they also contributed to our survival by passing on useful genes. Assimilation means that the human story is not about one species replacing all others but about a mosaic of interwoven lineages. Scientists were wrong to frame prehistory as a simple battle for supremacy. Instead, it was a complex process of merging and transformation. 16. Technology older than expected. For years, scientists believed that advanced technologies like fire use, seafaring, and complex tools were unique to Homo sapiens. But discoveries prove otherwise. Evidence shows Neanderthals controlled fire, built shelters, and made adhesives for tools. Homo erectus may have crossed water using primitive rafts, reaching islands long before modern humans. Stone tools older than 2 million years reveal planning and skill. These findings push back the timeline of innovation and show that multiple human species were inventive. Technology was not a sudden leap with Homo sapiens but a gradual, shared evolution across the human family. The assumption that only modern humans innovated was wrong. Instead, creativity and problem-solving appear to be deeply rooted traits across our species and relatives. Recognizing this breaks down the myth of human uniqueness and highlights the underestimated capabilities of our ancestors. 17. Cultural bias in interpretation. The way early scientists described human evolution often reflected the prejudices of their time. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, ideas of racial superiority and colonialism influenced interpretations of fossils. Non-European humans were often compared to primitive, early humans, reinforcing stereotypes. Neanderthals and other species were portrayed as savage or subhuman, echoing broader social ideologies. Artifacts suggesting intelligence were dismissed or reassigned to Homo sapiens. This bias distorted science and delayed recognition of other humans' abilities. Today, scholars acknowledge these mistakes and strive to separate evidence from cultural assumptions. The lesson is clear: science is not immune to social influence. The errors about early humans reflect how deeply cultural values shaped interpretation. Recognizing this history is crucial, because it shows how wrong scientists were, not just factually, but ethically, in underestimating the humanity of our closest relatives. 18. The mosaic of modern humans. Modern humans are not a pure lineage but a mosaic of different human ancestries. We carry DNA from Neanderthals, Denisovans, and perhaps other unknown groups. These genetic contributions affect our health, appearance, and adaptability. For example, Denisovan DNA helps Tibetans thrive at high altitudes, while Neanderthal DNA influences immune responses. Our genetic makeup is a patchwork, shaped by thousands of years of interbreeding. This discovery undermines the old notion of Homo sapiens as a separate, superior species. Instead, we are the product of blending, a hybrid species born from multiple human lineages. The mosaic model of humanity redefines what it means to be human. It means our uniqueness lies not in isolation but in interconnectedness. Scientists were wrong to think of us as separate. We are, in fact, living testaments to a shared human past, carrying within us the legacy of many lost relatives. 19. The humbling lesson of discovery. The history of human origins teaches us an important lesson: science is always provisional. For generations, scientists were certain about a neat evolutionary story. Each new discovery, whether a fossil, a tool, or a DNA sequence, has rewritten that story. Time and again, assumptions proved wrong. The arrogance of thinking we had all the answers blinded researchers to complexity. The truth is that human evolution is messy, unpredictable, and full of surprises. This humbling lesson extends beyond prehistory. It reminds us that science must remain open, flexible, and self-correcting. Being wrong is not failure, it is part of progress. The story of early humans is less about a final truth than about a process of discovery. Accepting uncertainty is the key to understanding our past. The mistakes of earlier scientists remind us to stay humble before the vast unknowns of human history. 20. The future of human origins research. The discoveries of recent decades suggest we have only scratched the surface of human prehistory. Ancient DNA continues to reveal hidden lineages, and new excavation techniques may uncover fossils in unexplored regions. Entire species, like the Denisovans, were unknown until recently, and more may still be waiting to be discovered. Advances in technology could allow us to reconstruct ancient populations, track migrations more precisely, and uncover evidence of unknown cultural practices. The story of human origins will keep changing, and scientists now expect to be surprised. The future promises not certainty but continuous revision. What is clear is that our past is richer, more diverse, and more interconnected than anyone imagined. Instead of being a straight path, it is a vast web still being mapped. The future of research ensures one thing: scientists will continue to find out how wrong they once were.